When the house goes dead silent and your budgie suddenly erupts into this frantic, repeating frequency, they aren't singing to the dark. They're trying to find out if you are still alive. It's 3 in the morning. The entire neighborhood is fast asleep, the TV is off, and the room is completely pitched black. But then, it happens. A single, piercing sound cuts right through the silence, sharp, repetitive, and entirely different from those cheerful melodies you hear during the day. It sounds frantic, almost mechanical. If you've ever owned a bird, you've probably stumbled out of bed at some point, flipped on the light, and found them just staring wide-eyed into the corners of the room, feathers slicked down tight against their body. Most people just brush this off as a bad dream, a random behavioral quirk, or just, a bird being a bird. But here's the thing. It isn't random at all. In fact, that specific midnight frequency is a highly calculated, hardwired evolutionary response. When that sound echoes through your dark hallway, your bird is actually interacting with a hidden layer of reality that you are completely blind to. Just think about this for a second. To really understand why this happens, we have to look closely at what occurs the exact moment you flick that light switch off. See, humans view darkness as a signal to rest, just a simple shutting down of our sensory world. But for a budgie, darkness completely changes the architecture of the room. Their eyes just don't calibrate to the dark the way ours do. While we have a higher concentration of rod cells to help us navigate dim rooms, birds are evolutionarily optimized for hyper-vivid, rapid daytime vision. When the lights vanish, their world doesn't just get dark, it dissolves. And this is where it gets interesting. Because they lose their primary line of defense, their remaining senses stretch to an almost supernatural degree. They begin to track these micro-triggers in the environment that you and I pass right through without ever noticing. Take the small blinking infrared LED of a smart home security camera resting on your shelf. To you, it's just an invisible guardian, but to your bird's ultra-sensitive visual receptors, it can appear as a pulsing, unnatural tear in the dark. Or consider the silent, invisible air currents generated when your HVAC system kicks on. You don't feel that subtle barometric drop or the sudden shift in wind direction across the room, but the downy feathers on a sleeping bird register it instantly as a physical disturbance. They aren't reacting to ghosts. They are reacting to a hyper-stimulated sensory map where the mundane becomes terrifying. This forces their brain to activate what behavioral biologists call a prey mapping network. Honestly, it's basically a sensory cage protocol designed for ultimate survival. See, in the wild, a budgie never truly sleeps alone in a vacuum. They are surrounded by a flock of hundreds of living, breathing security grid, where thousands of eyes are constantly scanning the canopy. If a predator tries to creep up in the dead of night, that movement triggers a fast chain reaction of subtle shifts through the trees. But inside your living room, that massive flock has been reduced to just a few birds, or maybe just you. When the room goes cold and quiet, the bird's brain starts running this hyper-vigilant scanning mode. Every tiny hum from the refrigerator, every microscopic temperature drop, every little creak of the floorboards, it all changes how they calculate their distance from a potential threat. They're running a complex algorithm in their head, just mapping out the boundaries of their safety. But here's the thing, when that sensory data doesn't add up, the system undergoes a critical failure. And that's what leads to what we commonly call a night terror. To really get the anatomy of a night terror, you have to look at the mechanics of the sound itself. That frantic, blind chirp isn't just some emotional outburst. It actually acts as an acoustic echolocation fallback. Think about it. In the pitch black, a bird can't see where the walls of its cage are, and it can't see where its flock mates are perched. By throwing out a sharp, high-frequency sound, they are testing the physical boundaries of their immediate space. They're literally listening for a return response, using the audio feedback to map out potential escape routes before a full-blown flock stampede happens. If another bird responds, the network is secure. If they hear the familiar rustle of their human moving in bed, the panic can subside. But if that frequency meets a wall of absolute unresponsive silence, the brain assumes the worst, that a silent predator has already infiltrated the perimeter and neutralized the flock. And this changes everything. Because as it turns out, your bird isn't just listening to the structural shifts of the house, they are tracking you. This is the heart of the hidden system. Your bird monitors your physiological state with terrifying accuracy. Think about your evening routine. You lie in bed, scrolling through your phone. You think you're completely still, but to your bird, you are a beacon of biological signals. They can hear the specific rhythm of your late-night scrolling, the subtle friction of your sheets, and most importantly, your changing breathing patterns. As you fall into a deep sleep, your breathing slows down, becoming deep and rhythmic. To a prey animal, this steady, predictable breathing is the ultimate sign of safety. It means the apex protector of the household is calm. But what happens when you stay up late, tossing and turning, or just staring at a glowing screen? Your heart rate is up, your breathing is shallow and rapid, and your sleep cycles are totally erratic. Your bird registers this shifting biology and inadvertently misinterprets it. They begin to believe that you, the giant protector, are restless because you sense a threat. Your anxiety basically becomes their data. They mirror your internal state, convincing themselves that an invisible predator is lurking nearby, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But the escalation goes even deeper, moving past the walls of your bedroom and straight into the macro environment. Budgies possess this incredible ability to process micro-vibrations and low-frequency structural rumbles, a phenomenon known as infrasound. These are deep, bass-heavy frequencies that sit far below the threshold of human hearing. Long before you realize a distant summer storm is rolling in, or that the tectonic plates miles beneath the earth are shifting, your bird's specialized skeletal receptors are already vibrating. They can feel the heavy, low-frequency hum of water rushing through old copper pipes behind the drywall hours before it makes a sound you can actually detect. When they erupt into a midnight panic, they are often functioning as an early warning distress beacon for the entire household. They are screaming about a physical reality that hasn't even registered in your conscious mind yet. To them, the very foundation of the sanctuary is vibrating, and they cannot understand why you are lying perfectly still, ignoring the alarm. When you step back and look at this entire hidden system, it completely flips the lens through which we view our relationship with these animals. For years, you might have believed that you were the master of the environment, a keeper managing a small, fragile pet's behavioral quirks. You buy the cage, you supply the food, and you decide when the lights go out. But the reality is entirely reversed. You are actually a clumsy, loud, and sensory-blind giant occupying a delicate, hyper-tuned sanctuary. Your bedroom is not just a room. It is an active laboratory of frequencies, air currents, and biological signals. And sitting right there on your nightstand, or in the corner of the room, is a highly sophisticated living alarm system that is constantly operating, decoding your behavior, and trying to keep the flock alive. You aren't just keeping a pet. You are being actively observed, analyzed, and integrated into a primal survival matrix every single second the lights are out. Understanding this completely rewrites the blueprint for how we actually keep them safe. It changes the whole dynamic from a place of frustration to this unspoken, mutual pact of nighttime security. Because once you realize that their panic is just a direct reflection of the invisible disruptions inside our own shared spaces, we can start to really quiet the environment down for them. We can minimize that infrared glare, stabilize our own routines, and just respect the profound depth of their silent intelligence. What do you think they've already figured out about you? Have you ever been suddenly jolted awake by this exact midnight alarm? And what did you actually find when you finally turned on the lights? Let's talk about it in the comments below.